All right, guys, we're on. You know the drill, all right? So we're going to start. Adequate notice of the joint meeting between the Township Committee, the Planning Board, Economic Development Advisory Committee on April 28, 2016 has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting written notice and agenda of the meeting on the bulletin board in this municipal building, 1000 Route 10, Township of Hanover, and by hand delivering, mailing, or faxing such notice and agenda to the following newspapers: Morris County's Daily Record, the Star Ledger, the Hanover Eagle, and by filing same with the Township Clerk. Okay, Joe, we're going to do a roll call, right?
Roll call. Committeeman Gallagher.
Here.
Committeeman Ferramonte.
Here.
Committeeman Bruno.
Here.
Committeeman Capola is at the 200 Club dinner honoring one of our police officers, and Mayor Francioli.
He's here. Okay, overview, and then I'm going to turn the meeting over to Ed and Joe Burgess' office. But before we begin, go ahead.
Pledge of allegiance.
Oh, I'm so informal, I forgot Pledge Allegiance. That's right, thank you for the reminder. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, John. Thought I was still in the conference room here. By way of a quick overview, we put together this joint meeting, and then the planning board pretty much has requested this. The process is as follows. The planning board for the last several years, this is more for the economic development folks on board here with us tonight, and for our fellow Committeeman Gallagher and Committeeman Bruno. For the past several years, we have been working on a plan for the improvement of Route 10. That plan is known as the Route 10 Corridor Study. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. That's what we're going to share with you tonight. The plan has several aspects that the planning board is concerned with. It not only initially examines east and west Route 10 from as far as the Marriott Hotel down as far as the Algonquin Parkway. It then further examines key areas in that plan for phasing development or redevelopment along the way. And it prioritizes those phasings along the way. You'll hear about that. I'm not going to take Ed's thunder. He's going to explain all of that to you. This is an opportunity for my colleagues on the committee to become acquainted with this plan more intimately. They've heard about our workings. They initiated the approvals of our workings on this thing. Once this meeting is completed, it is the intention of the planning board, and Gene, stop me if I'm wrong, that your next move is to go to a public hearing on this segment of the plan. Once that public hearing takes place, then we would then go into that portion which would be to do the zoning code for each of these areas specifically. So the planning board would continue its work now to go into the zoning codes. Once the zoning codes are prepared, gentlemen, it will come, as you know, to the Township Committee for consideration, and that's when it's enacted into law. So I'm not going to belabor it any further. And by the way, along the way, guys, even though this is like a formal setting, let's keep it informal. You have questions or whatever, I'm sure Ed can stop along the way and you guys can jump in. And that's for my colleagues too, Bob and Ace, same thing. Something interests you or something that you aren't sure about, just fire away. So on that note, Ed, from Joe Burgess' office, I'm going to give you the floor.
Good evening. Just give me a second. What I'll be doing is projecting up onto the two screens you see here. So if anybody wants to move up maybe a little bit closer, you might get a little bit more of the detail of what we have actually in the presentation. Are these microphones picking me up okay?
Can we dim these lights or no?
Sure.
Would it help if we dim these a little bit?
It may.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Yeah.
That's good. Good evening, Ed Snikus. I'm a professional planner with Burgess Associates. I've been involved in this Route 10 corridor planning and zoning report. We've formulated this plan. It's now currently in its latest draft form. dated January 26, 2016, has the date of today in the presentation for the purposes of today's discussion. What I'll be doing is providing an overview really of the report. I'm not going to dive into a lot of the detailed analysis of various properties that we've conducted, but really get to the meat of the matter that's relative to the recommendations in the study. First, I'll just give a brief introduction to the study area of analysis, but also, as the mayor pointed out a moment ago, is that it includes the proposed rezoning and consolidation of some zones. We actually have recommendations for how to go about possibly consolidating those zones. That will be subject to further refinement and further analysis. Also, we're going to be talking about areas for further study as redevelopment opportunities in priority areas. And then lastly, we'll talk about an action plan, most importantly, as to how to go ahead and move some of these things forward. First is the introduction of the study area and analysis. First, just the overall purpose, and we have outlined this in the report, is to provide a comprehensive and integrated approach to the revitalization of the Route 10 corridor. Very straightforward. The intent is to identify and preserve and enhance those properties contributing to the general welfare, while also identifying properties and areas that could benefit from a change in planning and zoning designations to help them contribute to the community's overall welfare. So I think that summarizes the overall purpose of where the objectives are going to try to make recommendations. First, just a quick overview as far as the study area. I apologize, I realized just tonight that if you try to put a PowerPoint on a projection or a TV screen, or a laser pointer, excuse me, you won't even see the laser point on the screen. So thanks to new technology, I got to find a new type of way to point to things. But over on the left-hand side of the image that you're seeing here, and hopefully you can read it from this distance, but it's also available in the report, is that it starts from, as the mayor pointed out, Ridgedale Avenue over in the westerly side of the study area. It follows Route 10 for an area of approximately 2.6 miles in length until we get to the easterly border, again, at Ridgedale Avenue, but in the adjacent municipality. It also includes certain key points, the municipal building, the Grand residential development, the Metro West Community Center and its residential components, Pine Plaza, and also suburban propane and the Golf Recreation Center, just for purposes of orientation. But sort of an executive summary of what the overall study does is it reviews current zoning, noted issues in the current zoning, and provided various recommendations for how to improve the existing zoning. Improving the zoning through uniformity and integration of various zones. It seems that the zone plan had evolved over many years to become a zone plan to respect various intentions at different times, but that now it's an opportunity to look back at that and sort of provide an overall uniform approach to the zoning of the corridor. And that's something we're recommending is done from this study. Also, a more defined regulatory vision with flexibility to address the numerous difficulties that we found, whether it be the size of a property, but also environmental restrictions on individual lots. Numerous environmental limitations, as I mentioned a moment ago. Also, the segmented arrangement of lots is some of the things that we were finding is limiting some of the developability of individual parcels.
Mention it.
Also, establish new goals, creating a vision, and also with objectives to stimulate interest and reinvestment within the corridor. And I think that's very important and something that we wanted to make sure was clear to not only the governmental entities, but also the public and development entities, that this is something we're looking to develop as a partnership and to invest in the corridor through our approaches. Also, we identified areas for specific study, and we felt that that was important within the corridor itself in order to establish areas that deserve further study or possibly areas for further analysis as redevelopment areas. And there's different tools available to the municipality if we were to designate certain redevelopment areas. First, just to dive into some of the recommendations, the rezoning consolidation. First, under rezoning, zoning consolidation is numerous unnecessary, repetitious, or possibly even superfluous zones. Better defines the corridor core structure without loss of regulatory control by consolidating those zones. Also, through zoning uniformity, we reduce the number of zones along the corridor while reducing some flexibility. It offers the ability to establish uniformity of vision and an integrated sense of place along Route 10 so that things start to relate to one another from an overall regulatory approach. This is the existing zone plan throughout the corridor. The multiple colors that you're seeing on this map illustrate over 17, I think it's approximately 17 individual zones that exist along the study area. Many for various reasons, and some actually we're recommending still continue because of how development is occurring in those areas or how it's currently zoned. But one of the things that we saw was very important through the zoning map adjustments was the need to look at the highway corridor as more of an integrated entity. And what you'll see now in the animation is, hopefully you can see it from this distance, but it's available in map form. And I'll go back and forth. This is the existing zone plan, and then now you'll see the overlay of the proposed zone plan. What you're seeing here in this overall illustration, if the mouse does show up, is we looked to, in this end of the corridor, is to establish more commercial relationship to Route 10. Right now, if I was to go backwards in the illustration, you see a lot of that's in the purple area. That's light industrial. That's a light industrial use. And there's actually many other zones that exist along the Route 10 corridor of various types. But as you see, as I fade back to the proposed plan, we're trying to integrate the corridor more with a uniform zone wherever possible. Although there are areas that we are respecting as to existing zone conditions. Like for instance, the Whippany Center District, that stays the same in this illustration, which you may not be able to see from a distance, but it does in fact stay the same. And other developments such as the municipal tracts, obviously public uses, things of that nature. But we're looking to go from 17 individual zones down to about 13 zones in this overall study area. And then we also provide in the analysis the areas for needed further study, where there may be redevelopment opportunities and other priorities to be established. What we've outlined here are 12 individual areas, and they're lettered from A through K. There's actually 2 H districts, so that's 12. But overall, we've established these areas as focused areas for further analysis. And what we mean by that is areas where we could possibly incorporate redevelopment opportunities. And for those who may not know the redevelopment law, what it allows municipalities to do is provide a tool by which we can then get very specific with some zoning recommendations. And we're trying to initiate some of these initially, but we're hoping also to initiate some of these from the direction of the overall study from private interests. What we've seen in other communities is that as you establish a map or an interest or focus of this type of illustration, many times it'll initiate discussions from private property owners to possibly get together and utilize their lands as more of a uniform area so that it establishes a more uniform and productive land use in the end. So from this overall map, I'll zoom in on a few areas that were identified specifically by the planning board as some of the priority areas that we wanted to focus on. I'm sorry, but this sort of, again, gives you some of the orientation where the various features are within the corridor. The first one is what we call study area I. It's only I because of where it was located on the map and sequence by which we then formulated the recommendations. But it incorporates Ridgedale Avenue on the left-hand side. Route 10 is at the top. But the properties that are located there are the Buick dealership, the Econo Lodge, also the gas station along Route 10. But we've also made recommendation that we could possibly include the office building behind it. And when you do this sort of analysis, what we're trying to do is identify if in fact properties are thought of as a uniform area. It may initiate different discussions and different approaches to possibly redevelopment of this area. And that's something that we're trying to initiate by us having this in a map form and recommendations in the study, that we're hoping to have that dialogue or initiate that dialogue in the overall effect or intent of the outcome of the study. So that's the first area, area I. Second area is labeled J and K. You'll see J and K and D only because of where we've zoomed in on the overall illustration. J is an area of mixture of properties that are vacant, also contains other prior uses on the property, whereas K also has a mixture of some residential and mixed uses as well on 3 lots that are exhibited there. Obviously all surrounded by the Grand. You're seeing the townhouses or the condominium development of the Grand around it.
Ed, can you give, for benefit of some of our colleagues, there's a little struggle sometimes they're looking at this mapping. This is Bogies, this is the home we just took down, this is that sector right there, so,
Yes,
that's correct.
a little description
That's
of that.
area
Main
J.
developments.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bogies would be the best one to consider. That's in area J. But in area K, it's a little bit less descriptive along the highway. It's really buildings that you don't necessarily see because of the vegetation in the foreground, but there are relatively isolated parcels that are surrounded by the Grand development. Continuing on, and then the third area we've identified as sort of a priority is Area E. And in Area E, this is the Corporate Communications Group building, adjacent to Parsippany Road that you see on the lower left-hand corner, and then you have Whippany Road in the upper right-hand corner. We did incorporate adjacent properties only from the standpoint of could this area be something more of a concise development in the overall picture or a final development pattern. It doesn't necessarily have to take on all the individual lots, but it's something that we thought deserved initial attention from the standpoint of an analysis of these properties. And what we look to do is from this overall study is if in fact this committee and the mayor sought that this would be a good area for an analysis, is to seek an area in need study. That would be the first step of any redevelopment possible determination for an area. And then once we establish an area in need study, and let's say it meets the criteria, then the next step would be establishing what a plan or a redevelopment plan can be for that area. So this is just a tool that we're looking to take a look at. And then as you establish your redevelopment plan, it enables a municipality to get very specific with regard to zoning controls, even getting down to building types and facade treatments, things of that nature, if in fact that's the final land use that you look to establish. So it does allow a lot of flexibility, and so this report is really setting the groundwork for us establishing these areas as potential areas in need of redevelopment or possibly areas in need of rehabilitation. So with that in mind, those 3 sites, those are the first 3 that the planning board had asked me to portray as priority areas. And now I'll talk about how that relates to what we would establish as an action plan.
Just as a sidebar comment, there are other areas that the planning board looked at that could have been considered priority areas, but were ignored for one reason. The process of improving them is underway. By example, Quick Check properties over here, which was the gas station, the homes, etc., this corner, inclusive of the Ukrainian church and down to the bicycle shop. That area, while it was so designated as an area of interest and concern for us, we sort of push it to the side because it's now underway for the improvement. So those areas, and there are some others like this that we know are difficult areas, but they're being worked on. So they weren't the top of our radar. They weren't the low-hanging fruit.
Right. Many of them are listed still in the report, but yet these 3 were some that we thought should be some of the priorities for consideration.
Yeah. And in addition, from a master plan standpoint, the planning board has looked at, and you had on your areas for further study, you had mentioned Metro West. In addition to the Metro West property, there's an adjoining property that the planning board had spoken about in the past in terms of including it because of the potential of looking at that whole area where the DS is. We're looking at where corporate mailing is, looking at the types of uses that are there. We also looked at the Eden Mill area as well. So that potentially could, as you expand your areas for study, be a point of consideration.
That's correct. Thank you. So going to the action plan, First, in the Route 10 corridor study itself as a document, we seek to have this as a report as an element of the master plan. And what that means is that we look to adopt it so that it would help inform the future iterations and future evolution of the master plan. Because this area is focused specifically on the Route 10 corridor, it's a very important and more detailed study than a typical, let's say, re-examination report of a specific area. The Planning Board is seeking to have a public hearing as soon as June 2016. So in order to summarize and finalize this document, it was important for us to come here tonight to get any feedback or input into the process. From that, we would look to adopt amendments to the zone planning and zone ordinances. The Planning Board and governing body would be involved in this, and we look to what we've established as target timeframes is by the end of 2016. Again, some of that might be a little aggressive, but yet it's important to be aggressive, I think, to try to get some results in the end. So we've established that as part of our action plan. Third, to initiate areas for further study. Again, those top 3 areas that we've identified. Area I, we recommend that in the Planning Board and governing body being involved in this process, that by the end of 2016, we look to have that area established and reviewed from the standpoint of further study. Areas J and K, the Planning Board and governing body would be involved in that process by the end of the first quarter of 2017. Area E, by the end of the second quarter of 2017, if, again, all goes well and the timing all seems to fall into place. But then the remaining areas, we just have a overall projected second quarter of 2018. And that's really just to establish a intention. We would like to possibly encourage some of these to possibly occur simultaneously. If in fact we find interest as we move forward, some of the areas can shift and be adjusted depending upon what the interest is of various property owners or other interested parties for those areas. And so with that, again, that's my abbreviated presentation. I wanted to make sure that we covered enough today. I know this is prior to your main meeting. Did want to go over time. So I can open it up for discussion at this point.
We turn the lights up?
Yep.
Yeah. This report hasn't been circulated to economic development or anyway, just to the planning board at this point, right?
I don't know that for certain.
Is this our most current
It's been circulated.
I don't believe,
rendition?
I don't believe it has.
Members here, has it been circulated to EDAG?
No. Okay. That's something we probably should do.
I'd like to make it available. Even we have not had our hearing yet, but I don't think I'm out of line by saying that this is what's going to go into the hearing. And the benefit of the hearing may or may not adjust some of this with public comment. I understand that. But at this early stage, it still might be beneficial for economic development to have copies of this for their own review and comment as well. So if we could do that, that would be good.
Have you made any changes to the February version? Is that still the latest?
It would be the January 11th, or I think we may have dated it.
Mine stamped stamped.
But it's, okay, if it's stamped that, then that's what it was. Yes, that's the latest.
That's the latest version.
That's correct. And that's what we presented.
So I have a question about Area I in particular. There's a
I can go back.
Econo Lodge and there's a gas station. Certainly there's room for improvement in those 2 facilities, but there's also a car dealership that seems to have invested a lot of money recently, redoing certainly at least the outside. I think they've done some remodeling. Are you suggesting that that entire area is under consideration, or would it?
What we're doing is looking at opportunities, really. And what we may find, if in fact you go through a redevelopment process, you may find that certain properties you may not want to include because of the very conditions that you just talked about. But yet, in order to encourage a more broader scale thought process, is to include it. It's not necessarily trying to say that that area is going to be designated or anything like that.
I guess my question is, can we separate any of this out? I don't know if one person owns the entire piece of property, or could it be parceled out so that potentially the auto dealer is left intact while we do something else with the Econo Lodge and gas station?
Would the zone line be a concern? It might be advantageous for the car dealer to be in it because we're talking about Norman Gale.
Right.
They might want to take advantage of expansion, and if the zone permits, and I think we talked about it would, then it's not inconceivable that they might want to go further or not, you know, I mean,
But they wouldn't be, my point is, they wouldn't be forced into anything.
Well,
Or could they
I can tell you
be?
right now, that's not going to happen.
I mean, the dealership?
They're not forced into it, number one. All right?
That's important.
We think it's very unlikely that anything's going to happen with the car dealership. You go down the line, you got Mondelez, you've got the Lexus dealer, the Maserati dealer. They're not going to change. All right? There are a number of other areas like that on Route 10 where we doubt that they're going to change. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be considered in the zoning. All right? When you do the study on this, we're mainly looking at all of the areas except the car dealership. Because it's there, it's included in the coloring, but we don't think that's going to change.
So we can still do something with the gas station and the,
Absolutely.
in lieu of the fact that,
I can tell you, because I know these properties, you're not getting anybody to cooperate in the redevelopment study unless they're gonna want to, or they're not gonna want their properties taken. That's a given. And frankly, the area's not gonna qualify for an area redevelopment. You're not gonna be able to say that gas
Right.
station is underutilized. You're not gonna be able to say even the hotel, even though we all know about the hotel, is gonna qualify for an area redevelopment. And certainly the Mandelbaums that own property number.
Is your
3.
definition of the hotel the America's best?
Yeah, America's
Okay.
best, okay. So, but they're not gonna qualify as area redevelopment. You got eight points, in order to qualify for one, this won't qualify for any. You're not gonna be able to get them, you're not gonna be able to get a redevelopment. If somebody challenges it, you're not gonna get a redevelopment plan through. Unless, let's take the hotel, for example. And those guys say, you know what, we can't get this place to work. It's functionally obsolete.
I know.
If you get
on the
and
record.
maybe the gas station says, hey, you know something, our
Well,
access there is.
Excuse me, just in terms of point of order as we go through this, we're not going to go through an analysis of every single use within these areas now. The job tonight was to describe what was there. The further studies will bring points forward that we can evaluate, we can consider. I think the point that we learned about this was when Committeeman Bruno asked about, hey, there is something there now, would they be forced into this? No, they would be considered. They're not being forced. So I just don't want to go into discussions on individual properties as to, at this point.
We don't want to, we
Really
don't
what I
want
was
to.
trying to get at.
I
Thank
understand,
you.
but I think the sort of misconception about redevelopment, I think would be forward to this.
Well, I think the point we just want to make is, while they're included in there, we don't want to frown on properties that are
Thriving,
improved,
potentially.
doing well, and may want to expand, and we want to give them the opportunity within that to expand too, should they want to. Should they want
That's the
to.
primary reason for including property into an area.
Exactly.
Not necessarily say of any takings or any issues like that.
And I also don't think we should get hung up on the word redevelopment.
Correct.
The purpose of this study is not to condemn every property along Route 10. The purpose
No.
of the study is to look at what's there and look at other advantageous ways to zone or rezone to encourage new development and redevelopment.
Bill, that's a critical point, and for the record, and since we're on the record, I mean, a lot of business people can look at this and feel intimidated by the fact that there's condemnation involved in here. There is not. What we are looking for is that operative word, improvement. And, if your business is presently operating there or can be utilized in a different manner or change of use that improves your property, that's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking to do. And it's not going to happen overnight, we know that too, but we've got to begin somewhere.
Any area that is in need of study, we call it in need of study rather than redevelopment. The one thing it does is it does give us the opportunity to deal with the current property owners, where in fact, if it doesn't get consolidated, maybe we can get some improvements in some of these areas.
Yes.
And with that hotel, we could certainly use significant improvement there. You can't get the whole area.
Well, the rezoning will stimulate interest in these properties by other parties, by third parties at the same time. So if we can combine three of those properties in there, be it, and we're talking about this one particular site for now, I understand, but I'm not going to go surgically into it. We're not going to design the code for it. But those three properties were to be acquired by one developing property owner, and for a much better use, upgraded use, and the present property owners benefit from the sale of or whatever, then hey, that's great. That's what we're trying to do. That's where we're trying to go.
Plus, we have a number of lighted areas along the Route 10 corridor that should be, something has to be.
Any questions from economic development? How do you find this?
How do you were talking about it, how are we allowed to go out and talk to the people who own these properties, bring them all into a room and say this is where our idea is? It's very exciting to do.
I think the process is going to be that prior to the public hearing, notifications are going to be sent out to all property owners affected by this. Blaze, it's going to require individual notifications, or do we just publish the hearing?
If you are doing a redevelopment area designation, then individualized notice must go out, yes.
Is there a lot? Is there a lot of different owners that are on this 2.6 mile that we have to notify?
Well, you wouldn't be doing them all at once. You'd be doing them in
Or you
pieces.
do it as own?
Yeah, for this study, I don't believe there is a notice to individual property owners. It's really a master plan effort.
Well, the master plan amendment does not. I'm talking about a redevelopment area.
I think
Give guidance to the individual
We're asking whether or
redevelopment.
not we can just contact property owners and ask them what they think they'd like to do with their property, because that's absolutely possible without redevelopment. Just, I mean, we try that with EDAC, get property owners in, what's going on. So that you can always do that. And you can also do that if you do find a notice that qualifies as a redevelopment, you're encouraged to bring them in to see if we can do things. So that option's always available.
So what the study intended to do is almost put out a welcome mat to say we're open to new ideas and redeveloping of these properties. So.
Good. Gentlemen? Any
No.
questions for?
It's good,
No? Good,
good start.
good, thank you, Ed.
No?
Thank you.
So we will have additional reports prepared and ready for circulate. Now, all of my committeemen have it? You don't have this yet. Circulated to Township Committee all, and Economic Development all, and any other within our organization,
Jerry,
needs,
Blaze.
they have it.
I don't know if they have it.
Do you have
Blaze,
this, Jerry? Do you
So,
have a
yes.
copy of this yet?
I think I have the adopted version.
I'm not sure if I have the latest set, but
All right, well then, yeah, engineering as well.
Yeah, give me all the copies, Ed, and I'll make the distribution.
Yeah.
I do have one question. I know at EDAC, I forget which one it was, the area that included the corporate communications and the retail properties up front. What numbers were those?
That's
That
E.
E.
I know at EDAC, we talked about making the priority area or a priority area from Troy Road down to Parsippany Road, including corporate communications. I'm just wondering why, because that's our central retail core for Route 10, and that's almost I know we start by Ridgedale Avenue or East Hanover, but the hello, you're in Hanover section really does start by Troy Road and maybe a little bit down.
That's the
I'm wondering
core.
why that area is
Whippany
not-
Village area from there through.
Yeah, even a little further east where the Verizon building is and that old industrial building is down to Prince Road. I'm wondering why that's not a priority car, since that's where everybody gets introduced to,
I think that was our fourth or fifth priority.
But corporate mailing is,
We tried to get a couple of things that we could necessarily move rather quickly.
Also, some of the, like the second and third areas are currently for sale. So now is a good time to move on.
Third, what do you mean second?
The second and third priority ones, the I and J, or J and K, I forget. Look, if you look at J and K on that map up there, those are the vacant, or a lot of properties in J and K are currently for sale. Like Bogies is for sale. I know that there's an interested property owner on all three properties in K. And so it seems better to move on rezoning before they get redeveloped under current zoning.
So you know the priority was.
we're gonna adjourn back.
Yeah, it wasn't importance, it was timing
Because we can't
that was driving some of that
reconvene till
decision.
8:30. Yeah.
Ron, I would
Okay.
just like to say
Oh,
something.
go ahead.
You know, I just want to say thank you very much. This is great work. I'm personally excited about the fact that something's actually going to change. You guys all made some great points. Bill Byrne, once again, made it very simple and right to the point. I just want to say this is exciting. We've been talking about this for quite a while, and we've all ridden up and down Route 10 for years and years and years. I remember even back in the day going up and down, going to county college when I was young and dumb. But it's exciting, and thank you for doing this, and you did a great job, and I'm looking forward to starting to really tackle this.
For the Township Committee, and again, this is the initial examination or exposure to this, so, I mean, you're going to be hearing more of this as we move through it, with probably some draft ordinances and suggestions as we go through. So once you get a copy of this, and both Bob, George, Tom, yourself, I mean, if you want to funnel comment back to the Director of Planning for inclusion in this, that's the way to go.
Great.
The way to go.
This is just a copy of the presentation tonight, so you have.
Oh, great. Yeah, this one here.
We'll get you the whole report.
This one. To adjourn this portion of the meeting to conference so that we formally come back out for 8:30, which is the published time for the Township Committee's public meeting. So I thank everyone.
Yes, absolutely.
All our group
Appreciate
for
you
being
taking
here,
time
and
out
thank you
tonight.
for your comments, and I'm sure we'll be chatting a lot about this in the days ahead, okay?
This portion of the meeting is recessed until 8:30 PM, when the Township Committee will reconvene. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, we're back at the conference session.
Krista, I'm going to shut down and back out.
We could do it twice a day.